Well, I'm very excited that two donors have come forward. They're patrons of the Art Gallery of Hamilton and of the Hamilton Philharmonic Orchestra, and they have actually commissioned a piece, which is a wonderful thing for a composer to be commissioned by private citizens rather than an organization, so I'm very excited about that. And because they're such strong supporters of the Art Gallery, they asked me to write a piece inspired by the Art Gallery. And since the Art Gallery is turning 100 this year, I really felt like I needed to do my homework and find out a bit of history about the Art Gallery. And it turns out the Art Gallery actually came into existence because of the works of a single painter. His name was William Blair Bruce, and he was from Hamilton. In the 1880s, he went to Paris to study and to live. When he died, his family, his father, who was in Hamilton, and his widow offered the city of Hamilton a number of his works, and they said, "You can only have them if you set up an art gallery." There we are. In 1914, they managed to get their act together and set up Hamilton's first art gallery. And so all of those works were the seed. And as part of the celebration this year, they're going to have a William Blair Bruce exhibit. And so I thought this is a wonderful opportunity to use some of his works to inspire my piece. So I dug through his letters, and there are several books written about him, and I chose one of his most famous works. It's called The Phantom of the Snow. And it's based on a Yukon legend of the Phantom of the Snow stealing the souls of fur trappers. So if the fur trappers in the Yukon saw the Phantom of the Snow, that was it. Their soul was taken from them. And you can see that in the painting, that his soul is just coming out of them. And it was a nice opportunity to write for narrator as well, because I was able to use the original poem which inspired William Blair Bruce. So that poem was written by Charles Dawson Shanley, an Irish-Canadian poet, in the 1800s. So William Blair Bruce used that. He also had a pair of snowshoes sent over to Paris to be inspiration for the work. So it's interesting that, you know, he took some Canada over to Paris, and I feel like I'm bringing it home. And then the other movement is a set of variations on his Baltic seascapes. At the end of his life, he lived on the shores of the Baltic Sea in Sweden, and he built a little hut. And he sat in that hut day in, day out, and painted the same thing over and over again in different weather patterns. So I took 4 of those paintings and then created musical variations on them, using the same music, but just put in different situations, like the weather patterns. It's an interesting process to take a piece of artwork and try to turn it into music. I generally look at the artwork and see if there's anything tangible I can grasp onto. In the case of these William Blair Bruce works, with the Baltic seascapes, I'm able to take waves. Well, waves, that's actually not that hard to do in music, and there's been a strong history of composers doing that throughout music history. But, you know, overlapping lines moving at different rates, that sort of thing. The main thing for the sea is creating an interesting sort of texture, which is always kind of bubbling. For me, the challenge in that regard was making sure that I could show the different weather patterns in music. So for the Baltic in winter, I wanted something very stark, you know, very cold, still chords. So high woodwind chords just sitting there, and then high, icy string chords in string harmonics. So that was nice. Another one is the Baltic in the moonlight. So I really chose the idea of reflection. So the woodwinds answering the brass, that sort of reflection idea, and the color change with the reflection. And then of course with the narration with the poem, that's much easier. That's like telling a story, and that for me is like second nature. It's like writing opera or writing song. It's just almost writes itself. So I really wanted to create the character, the Phantom of the Snow, and in this case I gave it to the flute player, the flute 1 player, and so she always has this recurring motive anytime we hear the Phantom of the Snow. And then there are some little word painting hints I picked up on, like the harp twang of the snowshoe. Now, unfortunately, I didn't have a harp to use, but I could still mimic that with the other instruments with a twang. So I had the violas playing a snap pizzicato, this sort of twang, twang, twang. And another one is there's always this haunting walking, and whenever that walking theme is brought up in the poem, I have that in the orchestra. So it's just boom, 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 just in the background while this other music floats over it. So really my job is to tell the story, whether it be artwork or a poem, and just try to bring it to life.